Film God Familia. I know. I'm sorry. I said I was going to do 2 a month, and I only dropped the one last month. Summertime. The beautiful thing is there's lots of people now working, or at least busier than it had been. But I'm lining up some chats for September because people are right now on holiday. It's August. And it was time. I tried to get our guest on, and to get diaries and calendars of me working and him working and stuff. And it was a few times of trying to get it sorted, but I've managed to carve out an hour of his time. And it's people like our guest today who I think epitomise what the film industry is and who succeeds. We met years and years ago at his sister's wedding. Shout out Lou, shout out Phil. And I was ADing, I was firsting, but I was probably mainly seconding at the time, and you know, you kind of do that, so what do you do? And he was like, I'm a film director. I'm an AD. And there's so many people who I think love the title of what they do more than what the job actually is. Oh, I'm an exec. Oh, I'm a CEO. Oh, I'm a this, I'm a that. But from the chat today, I think you could call him anything. It'd be any role on the call sheet. And he'd love it. He would love being there because he has a genuine passion for film. And it was lovely to kind of hear his story, and there's a few moments where he opens up about certain aspects of film and how he was feeling and the job. And I think it's really commendable that the guests that we have do come on and are honest and aren't just cheerleaders for their job and try to be super positive because it's in some way, shape or form like advertising for who they are. You know, oh, I'm this and I love it and it's great and it's stuff. It's like, actually sometimes it is really hard. Sometimes getting into film is really, really hard. And then staying in it's even harder. And once you start families and kids and bills and then it's a career. And I always thought that, you know, music was always my first passion. It was always and always will be my first love. And film and getting in as a runner gave me an opportunity to earn an income. And a fairly decent one for the level of entry required, you know. And then there's a point that it becomes more than just a job. And you're put in situations, or you have days that would break an average person. But the bonds that you have with the people that you're working with, whether you're, you know, when you're running and you've got 4 or 5 other runners and you've all been in situations on sets before where you've seen the real people and you carve out the small little pocket of people that you resonate with, they become more than work colleagues. And I know that during COVID, so for all the, you know, first time listeners, welcome. I'm Isusko. Forgot to say that at the beginning. So straight into in a rant. But for those long-time listeners, you know, this started off in 2019 as a place for people to tell you how they got in, what they do. And it was a place for film students to hear from the people doing it what their role entailed. And then we got hit in 2020 with lockdown, and instead of one a month, I did one a day, and I recorded 2, sometimes 3 eps a day, and I was up at 5 because I didn't have the facilities and the softwares that I've got today to make it really simple and easy. But the podcast became a place for people to hear their friends talk about what they do and why they love it during a really difficult time for society and also for our industry because it's shut down. And I feel like there's like a nice full circle that's happening because the last 2 years have been difficult for people again. And I think hearing episodes like today with a guest who loves watching films is a really nice way of getting into the summer. We're halfway through the year. Some of you are going to be on a beach listening to this. Shout out. Just, you know, hopefully you've taken that dodgy little selfie of your feet, you know, Indian, you know, cowboy. So knees down with the toes, or the reverse cowboy. Sending someone pictures of the sand and the sea. There's going to be some of you on a plane, heading back from work or heading off to holiday. But wherever you're listening, I'm sending love as always. And I just hope that hearing the passion of the people that I talk to maybe reignites it if it's been dampened. And as always, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for giving us your attention, which, as we all know, is the most important commodity that you have. It's not your time. As we said a few eps back, you can be spending time with the kids, but be on your phone, or you can give them your attention. So please enjoy the summer. I'm dropping one this month, and then we'll get back into September. We'll get back into the groove. I'd love to do one a week. My dream would be that this becomes something that I do every week. Drop an ep, talk to some crew, talk to some cast, get Gary Oldman on, get Emma Thompson on, get some British royalty, film royalty, and just grow this platform. And it will happen organically, as it has. So thank you to all of my beautiful, wonderful human beings listening around the globe. I love you. Te quiero mucho. Tesoros. Amores míos. Let's get straight to the app.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So, señores y señores, Film God family, thank you so much for coming. We have got a very special man today who I met many years ago, and he had a passion, he had a drive, and he had a very clear vision of what he was going to do and who he was going to become. And I'm very proud to say that, having watched this journey and having seen what is coming up for him in his near future, it feels like, from an outsider's perspective, boom, tick. All the film student things that you wanted to do, he's done. And I want to just get him on to have a chat about what he's learned and find out that fire and that passion, and find out what it is that you have to have inside you to get to do what he does. So, without any further ado, what is your name and what is your role on the call sheet, sir?
I'm Matt Palmer, and I'm director on the call sheet.
Amazing.
Writer-director, but that's not on the call sheet.
Okay, so writing, directing, which one do you
Mhm.
prefer, and which one was it that kind of started you off on this passion? Were you like a 5-year-old writing scripts or making little films at home, or what was that first moment that you were like, yeah, I kind of think I want to get into film and I want to direct?
Yeah, there wasn't really much writing at the beginning. It was more the kind of idea of the sort of idea of film. I think
Mm.
I was at boarding school and there was a guy who was massively into films. This is around the age of 15, 16. And he was the first person I knew who was just obsessed with film. Like he had a fistful of ticket stubs. He was like, "These are all the movies I've seen at the multiplex this year."
Wow.
And I kind of just got fascinated about film through him, through his kind of
Mm.
infectious energy.
Mm.
And then he started getting into horror movies, and that was really my big kind of. That's when it really took off. Like I started watching. I was sort of then hitting like 16, 17, and there are all these. At that time, there were like the video nasties had happened, so there were a whole bunch of movies that like you couldn't see because they'd been banned, or movies that had been released in the States but never come out in the UK. And so there was this kind of illicit, like these exotic directors like Dario Argento and David Cronenberg who'd create these weird movies. And that was what really hooked me,
So
I
they
think.
didn't have them at Blockbuster. You couldn't just rock up.
Well, you had to kind of, it was a bit like, how everything's kind of changed now and everything's at everyone's fingertips. Like if you want to go and see if you want to see a Dario Argento movie now, you go on Amazon and there's four of them, or you go on Flickr and there's another four of them. But
Mm.
back then it was like, who's this Italian guy? And it's like one of his films had been released on video. But then I remember us being at the market. I was at school in a small town, and we went to the market, and my friend was like, "Oh my God, they've got a Dario Argento movie on video!" And it was like this tiny label had put out his first movie, and like we took it home like it was this treasure.
Yeah.
And there was this like discovering things was quite difficult, and when you did, it felt very exciting and very kind of personal.
It's like
And
a
I think
treasure
that.
hunt.
Yeah, exactly like a treasure. I mean, it's crate digging, right? The same as crate digging with records.
Mm.
So I think that kind of it was all wrapped up in that kind of as if there was all this secret stuff out there.
Mm.
And that was really when I got kind of hooked.
And horror specifically, you weren't, or was it just that kind of really ticked a box and got your interest?
I think the thing I always liked about horror is how because Dario Argento was was quite extreme, and so he'd push all the elements of filmmaking. So he'd push lighting. So he'd made a movie Suspiria where everything was essentially they shot on this old Technicolor film, and maybe not Technicolor, something film stock, and you could really push blue, green, and red. So the whole movie has this look where suddenly everything's red, and then it's red and blue, and then it's green, and it just always horror. The thing that's interesting about horror is you can kind of because it's if film is like dream and horror is like nightmares. It's almost like you can push into that dream realm, and you can push things like aesthetically with horror without breaking the movie because
Mm.
you're in a horror movie, so you're not like why is everything blue? Do you know what I mean? You know why it's
Mm.
blue. It's because it's part of the style. So
Yes.
I really like that. But also, it was also a time when you'd look in the Radio Times and there were all these movies in terms of the stuff that was shown on TV. They were much more adventurous, and there was much more stuff out there to be found on TV too. So you could look through the Radio Times, and there might be like a movie. I just remember this one called The Incident from like 1967 about these two like hoodlums who basically hold normal people in this New York underground car like hostage. And it's a totally random movie, and this would have been like 1990, and this movie from 1967 that's black and white just pops up, and you're like, that sounds interesting. So you set your video, which was quite complicated to do,
With the numbers, and you had to
and
put the
it's like
VCR in, and
you do all that shit, and then you'd be like, and then you'd watch a movie from 1967, and it was just interesting because that was a drama, but it was like you just get fed by all this sort of history of film. Um, Yeah, video was funny. I remember like one night staying up super late to watch Taxi Driver for the first time.
Imagine.
And I was like, I've got to work in the morning in this clothes shop. I should really go to bed now because it's like 2:30. And I was like, I'm going to watch Taxi Driver, then have 3 hours sleep and go to work. And and it was the movie was building towards that climax. It's getting really exciting, and then it just stopped. And I was
Oh
like,
no.
oh shit! I recorded it on a 90-minute tape, and it's 97 minutes. So I went to bed at like 10 to 4, having not fucking finished the movie, which is
Oh God.
ridiculous.
Fuck, you'd have to just re-record it again. You're like, fuck, when's it going to be on next? And so that, I mean, it's very clear that the passion for film, once it gets into your blood, that's it. You're
Mm,
in.
yeah.
And when did the thought of, because there's a difference between loving film and watching film and being an encyclopedia of films of bygone eras, but then there's a jump that then suddenly goes, I wonder if I can do it. I wonder if I can turn this into a career. And
Mm.
was there any kind of, was there, I guess, film school? Because I know you were up in Glasgow, but was that the start, or was it when you were at uni that you then decided actually I can turn this in from a passion to a career?
I guess I really wanted to do it, and I was sort of determined that I would, and I also
Mm.
thought I would. And it's only recently that I think actually, is I think I might have some mild ADHD, and I actually think like this incredible energy that I thought I'm going to do it because I know because of this energy. I think it might have been ADHD. Do you know what I mean? That made it
Okay.
seem like
It's a
if something,
superpower. It
if
can be
there's
an
so much
absolute,
energy behind
yeah,
this, it's
yeah,
obviously going to manifest and happen. You know?
which it has,
Yeah, which it did. But it's funny because I sort of had a bit of a light bulb moment where I was like, oh, maybe it wasn't destined. Maybe it was ADHD.
Mm.
Maybe that's why I've been able to focus on it really hard. But yeah, I mean, after that, I went to Glasgow Uni to do film and TV, and you had to. So it was film and TV in English, and it was really like useless. I thought it
Mm.
was basically
Too broad, or just not what
it
you
was
wanted?
it was academic. Like it was almost like Glasgow was embarrassed. You know, they were trying to justify the fact that they had a film and TV course, which seemed far too frivolous and silly for a proper university. So they made it as boring as fucking possible.
Jesus.
So, and it was always, it was that kind of writing essays based on critical theory and not having any original thoughts, quoting other people, proving that this is true because so and so said it, blah blah blah. And
Mm.
I,
Maybe
um,
more movie critics rather than movie makers.
not even movie critics. I honestly think, I mean, I don't have a particularly high opinion of academia, and it just feels to me like it was only useful if you wanted to spend the rest of your life writing papers for like critical conventions about the relevance of the color green in Fellini's work. You know what I mean? Which to me, I'm just like,
Just give me a
fuck
camera,
that.
let me fucking go shoot
just let me
something.
just let me sit and watch Roadhouse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so that was kind of quite frustrating. And then there was about 10 years where I'm not quite sure what I really did. I did a lot of temp jobs, and I think probably wasting time is the
Mm.
is the proper definition of it. But then
But
in my
writing scripts and making films at that time, or is it just
nothing,
watching films
no,
and
I was like,
okay.
I'll make films. It was kind of like this really bizarre gap between this conviction I was going to do it
Mm.
and me doing absolutely nothing to make that happen.
Yeah, but if there is that massive curve up where it's going to happen and then nothing seems to have happened, I guess
But
the
I didn't
belief
really,
wanes, or was
I
the
really
belief still
didn't,
there?
I really didn't do anything to make it happen. You're not really gonna make it happen by sort of doing a temp job in an insurance company and then using the money to go to Canada and getting stoned a lot. Like the thing is, the only thing is, I did keep watching a lot of movies.
Mm.
Like that was the only thing that was actually useful during that time. I mean, it's funny because I heard Tarantino talking on his our podcast recently and saying that, like, to some extent, he was sort of saying that that time at the video archives was kind of a waste of time because, you know, if he could have just got his shit together 3 years earlier, he could have made like two more movies and done it all earlier. Whereas I'm just knocked out by the fact that Tarantino did all that shit as early as he did, and I feel like the video archives probably was really important in terms of just all the movies he watched and the conversations he had.
Yes.
But it wasn't like, all that said, like Tarantino was writing scripts at the age of God knows what. Do you know what I mean? Like 21, and I didn't write anything at all during my 20s. So I wrote a short film script when I was like 28, and that was like the beginning of it. And I had no idea how to write a script. And when I read it now, it's like, it's just huge blocks of text, you know, and it's not actually a script. It's just like it was like a roadmap for like a
And did
six.
you make it? Did you make that
Yeah,
script?
so I managed to get like £2,000 or something, and then went and shot this short film in a cave about a sound man who starts hearing weird sounds.
Nice.
Which kind of came out of, like, in my sort of mid to late 20s, I did start doing a bit of, I sort of went into film sound first because I felt like, yeah, I was like, how do you get to be a director? I've got no idea how you do that. I haven't been through any kind of proper film school, and sound feels like something people need. Sound recordists, and it feels like a way to start learning a bit of stuff and to get on film sets and to watch other people doing stuff. So I went in through sound and like sound recording and then sound design, and learned quite a lot that way, and fed that into a short film that was very sound based, and then that ended up getting into a pretty decent number of festivals, particularly as it was like very low budget. So suddenly I'd suddenly
It started. It began. You
It
know,
began.
it began. But then all that, you know, as you said, it's like all of that time from post uni to the start of that sound career, or you know, the shooting that, all of that. In hindsight, looking back, you kind of go, well, it was time to it was time that you had to watch films to build up your encyclopedia of why people do things, how they do things. It's kind of like an apprenticeship of education, of knowledge, of what they didn't teach you at film school. You had the chance to just watch those films, and then when you get on to when it becomes time for you to do it, there's probably a chance you go, oh well, I like what they did there with the color, and I like what they did there with the sound, and and I've got an idea for this, and then all of a sudden you can start forming. I guess I guess it is a style. Like, would you say that you have a directorial style? Is there processes that you've creatively borrowed to then kind of form the director that you are?
Yeah, and I think what it is I think there's certain films where I particularly in the past, but still, like particularly when I was young, but still now, I feel like when I watch them, I kind of crawl inside them. I feel like I'm I can't quite explain it, but I'm super immersed. Like I want to be, you know, the way David Lynch put himself in Twin Peaks. I feel like that came from that thing. He was like, he crawled inside the actual TV show, you know. And I feel like with some of those Argento films, and with, you know, with certain films, I just feel very connected to them. And I think the style that I direct in terms of, you know, in terms of camera and production design and lighting, like it's always, I'll always be, I feel like you have to be a little bit careful because if I was just like, there was a point where I was like, I would have just been like, I want it to look like a Dario Argento movie, and then you just, you're just making poor man's Dario Argento movies. But if you have enough of those, if
Mm,
your like pool is maybe 100 movies, I can see where the DNA of things or the general style or the lighting has come from. But it's a diverse enough pool that nobody would know that like the climax of Prom Queen is like really influenced by this Australian slasher movie from 1982 because it's kind of too obscure and also it's just one influence mixed in with other influences that all mix together into hopefully something that is no longer recognizable.
mm,
But Next of Kin is one of those movies that I can crawl inside. So that becomes one of the, do you know what I mean? One of the things that you draw out of.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. It's
what it kind of feels like. I think it's like you have to find the movies that you love and that you like love like uncommonly, like you love beyond reason. I mean, there's movies I like that I've spent 20 years telling people how good they are, and finally I'm like, it's kind of just me, or
mm,
there's very few of us, and that's okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, just because everyone doesn't think Hardware from 1990s is actually one of the greatest movies ever made, it's just that's fine.
mm. Yeah. We'll have a little fan club. It's no, there'll
Yeah.
be 12 of us there. We'll all have a drink.
I mean, it's funny that thing, right, where it should feel more special because I'm like, well, yeah, it's more special because there's less of us, but you're still like, but you should love it. It's amazing. You should watch it.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think that's the one of the beauties of film is that there are going to be some absolute masterpieces that no one's ever gonna know and never even hear
Yeah,
of these massive directors that have such a cult following.
yeah. But then also, there's other movies. There are mainstream movies like Seven is one of those movies for me.
Hmm.
So it's not like they all have to be obscure, but it's like Apocalypse Now is another one. It's just movies where you just like you watch them and they're kind of perfect.
Yeah, I mean, Apocalypse Now. I've just started reading the what was it, Raging Bulls, Easy
Oh
Rider,
yeah.
Raging Bull. Yeah, and you just and some of the stories, you're like the film industry of the '60s and like there was there was a level of I'm going to say carnage, but kind of a creative hailstorm that would happen, and then these beautiful films would come out of them.
Mm.
Whereas I don't know whether there's, and this is not me kind of degrading the Fast and Furiouses and the Marvels and all the rest of it of these Hollywood movies, but there's such a they're quite stale in their creative process. Yes, they'll be thinking, but this, the idea of having Marlon Brando, and he's just in, and no one's going to choose him, no one's going to pick him. He's this and it was such a different time. And so many beautiful things came out of that carnage. It's the awesome worlds. It's like, what Switzerland had with their 100 years of peace, cuckoo clock.
Yeah, I do think to some extent that there's just the industry now is just trying to make sure that it's trying really hard to make sure that it makes things that people are going to like. And the problem is that you can't, to some extent, you can't manufacture that.
No.
And there's no, I mean, filmmaking in terms of, I'm like, who the fuck would put like $20 million of their money into making a film?
Mm.
It's just one of the hardest ways to make money and one of the easiest ways to lose money. But it feels like in the past there was people were kind of aware of that and they just gave it a shot and they kind of trusted. You got to trust in the art to make those. And none of the movies that I love were made by cautious studios or
Mm.
cautious execing,
Mm.
and I just don't think it works. Do you know what I
No.
mean? You just have to take a chance
No.
and hope for the fucking best.
Yeah.
know
Well,
what I mean?
you, you're never gonna. The industry will never grow if it keeps on making the same thing. It just
Yeah.
won't. And I think, and as you said, and it's similar to music. It's the thing with Rick Rubin was talking about, and when he talks to his artists, they're kind of trying to write songs that they think their audience wants, and he's like,
Mm.
"Fuck the audience. Just you make the songs that you love, and the audience will find them."
Well, also
That's his.
the audience, the problem with is the audience don't know what they want
Yeah.
because they haven't heard it yet.
Mm.
Do you know
Haven't
what I mean?
seen it. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
like if you assume that you're going to make what they want, then you're already making something within the realms of stuff they've seen before or they said they like. So
Mm.
you're destined to repeat yourself. And you can see a lot of movies. I mean, it's carried through. Like you look at Seven now and you think, well, Seven was always going to be made because it was a masterpiece. But that film took a decade to make and came out and nobody liked it. And you sort of forget that. You forget that
Mm.
Fight Club was a flop.
Yeah. That's what Brad Pitt, who was like, they're at Cannes, he got booed, and he turned around and he just said, "That's the greatest film I'll ever be in." And now it's an absolute cult classic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? It's
But it
crazy.
happened. I think it's happened throughout art. Van Gogh, no one, people would buy his paintings to take the wood from the framing so they could make a fire. And you're like, motherfucker, these things are now, that's like, granddad should have just kept it in the frame. It could have been worth something. But,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
talking of art and, 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 and trying to find that little spark of something to do you like, have you got a process or a way that you're like, right, I've got an idea. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm thinking about it in the shower. I'm going to watch other films. What is your process from kind of concept of a script to then go through? And maybe as an example, let's use Caliber because it's an
Mm.
award winning and felt like the first short that kind of then put you on the map. How did that process come from start to Edinburgh Fringe?
I think Caliber was what I'm realizing in retrospect is Caliber was a very specific and unique one, and I don't know if it'll be repeated
Mm.
because I didn't really realize it at the time, but I think Caliber. I mean, I don't think any of the stuff that it means to me really would be any kind of an access point into the film for anybody else. But I
Mm.
kind of realized about halfway through writing, I was like, oh, I know what this is about because, so, I mean, the only way to really explain it is to sort of go into it. But like, I'd gone to boarding school when I was 11, and then during my sort of sort of 15, 16, 17. I'd feel very guilty about things, like, and think that I'd done like actions that I went out and got drunk in the middle of Halesowen, a small town, and kicked in this milk bottle, and then spent days thinking about how somebody might have fallen on that milk bottle and
Mm.
been in hospital or was dead. And I didn't understand where any of that really came from. But then in my later 30s, I think I started thinking about how I think what happened is when I got sent to boarding school, I thought I'd done something wrong. This is all unconsciously.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
it was a punishment, but it was a punishment for something I didn't understand. So I thought I must have done something bad, and
Mm.
this manifested in this kind of like guilt kind of complex about everything. And but it was only 20 years later when I realized that that was the case. And it was only 5 years into writing Caliber that I realized that that's what Caliber's all about. Caliber,
Mm.
because the thing is, because I thought about morality a lot and I thought about right and wrong, and I thought about being a good or a bad person. As I got older, the thing that I found quite horrifying is that actually, when it comes to moral decisions, you're really on your own. You know what I mean? You can go to the pub and you can talk to your friends and you can get advice, but when you go home, it's it's all on fucking you, and there's no, it's not, neither is it a fixed thing where there's a definite right and wrong. There's grey areas of it,
Yes.
and it's really scary. Do you know what I mean? So even the idea of like if you had like an affair, to me is like this. You could, people who have affairs might go, well, I'm not happy at home, or like this person doesn't understand. I'm just reading a book where it's getting into that, and like a detective book, and there's a lot of reasons and excuses for it, but ultimately you're the person who would be doing that,
Yeah.
and you have to live with that, and you have to square yourself with it, and there's a loneliness about that. And it was only halfway through Caliber that I was like, oh, that's what Caliber's about. It's about all of
Mm.
that shit it's about that horror of morality being like a single player game where nobody can really, you're the only person who can really deal with it. And what happened, which is crazy, is that Caliber, like I'd been wanting to come up with an idea for a, for a feature, and I tried all these things of like genre and setups and this. I tried everything, but then one evening I was sitting. It was about 11 o'clock at night. And I was half awake, half asleep, and I suddenly just saw this image of a crosshairs of a gun and my eyes were closed, I think, with a deer's head in it, and then the deer's head dropped, and there was a child behind it, and
Oof.
I just opened my eyes, and I was just like, "What the fuck was that?" And I mean,
Mm.
yeah, maybe my reaction should have been, "Oh my god, that's horrifying," but I was actually, "Oh fuck, I think this is
That's a
it."
great idea. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
um,
that's it. It's a visual medium.
but the thing is that's weird about it, right? Is again, another thing I realized is, I was talking a lot with my partner about having kids at that point, and that like that, even in that image, the crosshairs over the boy in the movie and the boy in the image is the same age that I was when I went to boarding school.
Mm.
And I think there's all kinds of weird sort of
Yeah.
in the background shit that has led my subconscious to throw up that image.
Hmm.
Boom. And then I built it around that image. And as I unpacked it, it became more and more about all the shit that had been bothering me
Yes.
subconsciously, consciously for the last 20 years. But I don't think that I'll ever do another script like that, because I feel like that was very. I don't think I don't think that'll happen again. I think that film needed to happen.
Hmm.
Whereas everything else I've worked on is stuff that I'm kind of interested in a more conscious as opposed to subconscious way. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yes. I mean, there's a level of art that artists sometimes have to unpick scars and old wounds, and that can be
Mm.
really fucking difficult to go in and ask those deep questions and really look at the past that you've had, because it's gonna get emotional, and it's gonna get hard, and it's gonna get tough. And Amy Winehouse thought that she needed to go through all this shit to then be able to write songs to then live it, and that led to to some unfortunate passings of herself. But there is a fine balance between finding a project and a passion that excites you, that you can understand and get behind. But if the dealing of past traumas is too much, and you've done it and you've gone through it, then you know that that's your level. You don't want to go and unpick any more of that, and everything
Well,
then on top of that then is, well,
I sort of felt like it was more like it was kind of the opposite. It was like repair. Like writing that
nice,
was it was like a
cathartic.
catharsis.
Mm,
Yeah. Um, but I think, that was the main, in terms of an artistic process of repair. Like
mm, nice.
that was the main kind of one, which is why I don't think it'll happen again. And then obviously it
Yes.
also linked with like I was also coming out in the shape of Deliverance, which is one of those 100 movies,
Hmm.
and Wake in Fright, which is another one of those. So I was like, I've always wanted to do this kind of like rural sort
Mm,
of sort of survival thriller. So it's like the genre coincided with the theme that had to come out, and it all kind of
Perfect timing on everything.
it
Yeah.
kind of all came together. Yeah, but it was only, I didn't realize it's. I mean, I sort of want to say it wrote itself. It didn't, because it took 10 years, and like I learned a lot about screenwriting.
Wow.
But the essence of it, yeah, yeah. I mean, it took. So I wrote a script. I read loads of script writing books, because
Hmm.
for ages I'd been like, script writing books are basically anti-artistic, and they're bad. Um, and then I tried writing. I was like, I'll just do it automatically, and then wrote some really unstructured rubbish.
Yep.
And finally was like, when I had the caliber idea, I was like, I need to do this properly. And that coincided with the time I was like, I need to read the script writing books and learn the rules.
Mm.
So I did like a sort of two month self teaching course of like just reading all these books, and that was great. Honestly, like, it was amazing. I started realizing that a lot of films that I thought a lot of those 70s movies were very freeform. But actually, when you look at those new American movies from the 70s, like the Altmans, well, I don't know about Altman actually, but like, like Apocalypse Now or
Mm.
Electric Light in Blue and um, Dog Day Afternoon, all these films that feel quite freewheeling and free,
Mm.
they all have the three-act structure, and they're
Yeah.
very carefully structured. It's just that within the structure, they're very complicated.
Mm.
Whereas I thought complicated was a lack of structure, and actually, a lack of structure is just a lack of meaning, and
Mm.
you know what I mean, and a lack of cohesion, and a lack of yeah. I do quite strongly sort of believe in that three act structure and the
It makes sense. I mean, it know the person, something happens, something gets fixed. In
yeah,
essence,
yeah,
it's and you kind of you're it's the hero's journey, all these things that allow you to connect with the person, understand what they're going through. Memento for me was the first one that was like, I don't know where the fuck I am. Yes,
mm,
I know the black and white is bad. I know but that was the first I was like, oh fuck, I was all over the shop. I didn't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And I think that leads me nicely into, it took 10 years to write. I'm assuming there was, it was a short, low budget movie that maybe would have taken 6, 8 weeks, something along those lines. I'm
yeah, yeah.
assuming.
I think it was 5 to 6 weeks shooting.
Yeah. And so then you finish it, it goes out to Edinburgh, it wins. Does that feel like a moment, or does it not
Definitely.
have that importance
No,
then?
no, definitely. But it didn't it wasn't quite like that. So we finished it, and I thought, this is my first film, so I can't fully judge, and I could be completely misguided, but I think this might be good. I think I think
I thought you were
I
going
think
to
it's
say
good.
great there. I thought you were going to say great, but then it's just the very humble. I think this might be all right.
I was like, I think this is good. I think this is. I've seen lots of movies, and I think this is a
Mm.
decent movie. And then we started putting it into film festivals, and it didn't get into any. So we
Wow.
got rejected from 10 in a row.
Mm.
So then I was
What do
like,
they want? A short alongside it, or just the different genre? What was their
hey,
reasonings?
every reason, contradictory reasons. Like I decide after, we want it to be more. It's too genre. It's not genre enough. Like,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
wanted it to go full on. I wish it had just stayed a bit more character based. It was like
Mm.
and then finally I was like, I think the one that after about being rejected by 9 festivals, I was like, I know what the problem is. The problem is that the second half of the movie is good, but the first half of the movie isn't good. So then the producer got in touch with me and said the programmer from Rotterdam texted me halfway through the movie and said she loves it, or he loves it. I can't remember if it was he or she, which is a weird thing to do, right? It's like,
Halfway through,
don't
that's
text half. Just watch the movie. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
But anyway, I was like, well, we're sorted because I've diagnosed the problem, which is the second half's good and the first half's not as good. So the Rotterdam program is halfway through and she loves it, and I know the second half's better, so we're in.
Great.
And then 2 days later, I was like, "Yeah, no, we didn't get in. She didn't like the second half of the movie," and I was like, "Fuck!"
This is it. I've quit.
I was like, I haven't got a fucking clue what the problem is. And then, but then Netflix, well, that during that process too, Netflix were buying it, and it was funny because over that 8 months, it was almost the 8 months when Netflix went from being Netflix to Netflix.
Yeah, yeah.
So at the beginning, I was like, "Oh, Netflix, what are they? What is that?"
The
But
DVD in the post and then to streaming.
yeah, but then all of a sudden, like by the time the deal was actually done, because it maybe took about 6 months, by the time it was actually signed, it was a big deal.
Mm.
And then Netflix said, then Edinburgh said they would screen it, and we had to go to Netflix and say, can we just have this one festival screening? And that was touch and go, but they said yes, you can. So then we went to Edinburgh, won Best Film at Edinburgh, got the reviews in Variety and stuff, and so it very definitely felt like a moment, and
Amazing.
even more so because it came off the back of this kind of despair that somehow the film was broken and I didn't know why. So it
How does
was.
that affect you? Because I guess
I think
with
with that one,
such
it was probably,
passion.
yeah, with that one, it was probably, it wasn't nice because it was so personal
Mm.
that it was almost like if people were going to say it was shit, it was going to, unfortunately.
Like, this is my life, motherfuckers.
Yeah, well, it was like if the movie came out of the fact that I felt kind of like I was a bad person, and
Mm.
then people then saying it was a shit film, I don't think it would have been good for me.
Mm. Mm.
But yeah, so it was, yeah, it was a roller coaster, but then it was great. And then Stephen King tweeted about it, and
Boom.
that was like
Amazing.
our marketing budget was zero, but he did the job for us by tweeting us.
Ledge. Shout out, Stevie. And then how does it, like, you kind of go from that moment once you have a film in Netflix, does that then open a door, and do you then start getting introduced to the Netflix world, or is it just go make another film and try and resell it? Or how does it then work once you get to that level?
I mean, that was the thing that was a little strange is that Netflix, it felt like because it came out on Netflix and did pretty well. I mean, it's an independent movie, so it's not like, it was Netflix were happy with the buy and were really pleased with the numbers that it was doing for the amount of money they paid for it.
Yeah.
Which wasn't you know I think it's fair to say it wasn't mega bucks they paid for it. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Because it was a low budget film in the first place. But then they didn't really. So off the back of that, I got like a UK and then a US agent. And I
Through
think
them or just independently?
no, through off the back of the movie. So I
Right.
got a
Yep.
UK agent before Edinburgh, and then sort of just before Edinburgh, I got a US agent. So
Hmm.
that was all super exciting. Um, and I think the agents really felt that Netflix would be very keen off the back of Caliber, but it didn't really pan out that way. Netflix, I pitched three movies. Obviously, Prom Queen was made by Netflix, but that was the third film I pitched to Netflix.
Hmm.
And so it was quite a job to get the next one going on Netflix, which so it was almost like starting again really with Netflix.
And that time in between, is it back to script writing? Is it back to just watching films, or what do you, from that kind of high of, because it would feel like if I'm a film student listening now, that journey to that point, winning a film, like winning an award, getting on Netflix, you kind of feel like that's the first peak of a
Yeah.
career, of a manner, of a plateau. What then happens after that then? Because you've gone on, you've made a second film. That's the beauty of this story, is that some would just get there, finish, and then not do anything more because they feel like they've done what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, what was I mean, what I would say is that what would have been great is if so basically, definitely people in the States, like the industry people, really liked Caliber, and it gave me a lot of momentum, and I had a lot of meetings. Um, but I didn't have another idea. And
Mm.
if at that point I'd have had like, you know, I'm kind of kicking myself a little bit, but at the same time, I'm lucky that I even had one idea. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? But it's like if I'd have had the ideas that I have in my head now,
Hmm.
then then I could have said, well, there's this and there's this and there's this, and that would have been a really good situation. But I didn't have any ideas, so I went in to the meetings, and I feel like I did good meetings. But ultimately, what they want is an idea.
Yes.
And I didn't really have any at that point. And I was also just so happy that, because it was such a jump up. It was just nice to be in that world and having those meetings at all. So
Mm.
it's not like I was complacent, but I was maybe just adapting to that new reality. And I was quite,
You'd never been in that situation before.
yeah. But I'd never been very prolific in terms of coming up with ideas.
Mm.
Um, and then, yeah, and then, so I then managed to pitch one idea, um, and got some script funding to make that, to write that, but it didn't really work. So it was one of those things that pitched really well, but didn't really work. And then the next thing that happened was, I got approached with this script that, so basically it was Bong Joon-ho and his producer
Mm.
it's a very complicated story, but there'd been a play that was a Korean play
Yep.
that had been turned into a Korean movie that Bong Joon-ho had co-written but not directed. And then they decided they wanted to do an American remake, so they'd hired somebody to write an American script. So I got sent that script, and it wasn't very good. Like the guy had just basically taken the original and just kind of transcribed it into American, just
Before
culturally.
AI, just dump
It
it.
really
Translate
felt,
this.
it really felt like that. It just sort of plonked the plot down. But
Yeah.
I just felt like when I read that script, I was like, oh my God, this has got real potential. Because I do like films that can reach that really extreme kind of tension that I
Hmm.
feel like Caliber, for the people who get it and like it, it does reach those places. So I kind of went back, and it was scary, obviously, because it's Bong Joon-ho. I mean, he hadn't had Parasite and one, but all that stuff. But he was
Mm.
still Bong Joon-ho, who was a big name in world cinema. And I was kind of like, I like this, but I'd want to do these two big changes. And I was kind of aware it was like to your story. And it went very quiet for about a week, and the producer told me, he was like, "Oh shit, what's the producer that works with Bong was like, oh, I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like, oh fuck, what's he gonna?" And he got back and said, "These are great, let's do this." So
Wow.
we
Made you
changed.
sweat for it.
Yeah, he did. But we proposed switching the lead character from a man to a woman,
Hmm.
and we'd also proposed taking out a kind of romantic element and just turn it into a thriller.
Nice.
Um, and so yeah, so we at that point also I started co-writing with a guy who was actually an actor from Caliber,
Nice.
who's primarily a writer.
Hmm.
And so we wrote this film that I felt like was the real sort of spiritual successor to Caliber.
Hmm.
Um, and it was, I mean, it's intense. It's got migrants in, and like some pretty gnarly shit happens. But as a thriller, I felt like it was a really good
Yeah.
thriller. So we did that, and we're getting into lockdown now. So we wrote that during the first bit of lockdown. Then we wrote a horror script, and then I got approached by Prom Queen. And
Yes.
by the time we'd written, because Sea Fog, which is the Bong Joon Ho one, was really dark and intense. And then we were like, so we'll do this horror called The Trees, and we'll have fun with this one. But that one came out because it was the middle of lockdown. That one came out really dark and intense too.
Mm.
so with Prom Queen, we were like we like pitched something really fun and silly, and we're like, now finally we can do this off the back of these two really serious scripts. Now we can write something silly. So we went really silly with it.
Hmm.
And then we got to a point where like Seafog kind of came to a bit of a head, and we cast Elizabeth Moss wanted to do it,
Yes.
and either David Harbour or Nicolas Cage.
Wow.
So it was really building to something.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then we went over. I went over to Hollywood and pitched, like in a room with Bong too. And by that time, Parasite had won all these awards,
Yes.
commonly known as Oscars, I think.
Yeah, I've never really heard of them much, but yeah, it seems like a big deal.
Something in America. But yeah, so went and pitched it, but it didn't quite get over the line because it's politically a little bit incendiary, and there was like all of these things kind of came to a head at the same time, like a sensitivity about kind of Mexican cultural issues,
Hmm.
and like white white savior kind of
Hmm.
ideas, and it just was a bit too much. I think the heart of the movie is liberal and is good, but people were just like, this is just a bit too. We're all saying the script is good, but it's just a bit too on the edge.
Yeah.
It didn't quite get over the line, which was a real shame because I really like that project. But just at the point when I was about to run out of money, Prom Queen did happen.
Come on,
Yeah.
which was number one on Netflix for a little while there, dude. Well done.
Yeah, thanks. So, but it was quite weird having those two such, is it going to be the film that we shoot in the Dominican Republic with the Mexican migrants and the
Yeah.
very serious shit, or is it going to be like dance offs in Canada with
Yeah.
slasher running around?
The slasher.
It was quite a
Yeah, yeah.
bizarre, quite a bizarre. I mean, I do feel like those are the sort of two sides of me in terms of cinema: the sort of intense thriller and
Mm,
the kind of hysterical, silly horror. I like those
mm.
two things. But yeah, it went hysterical, silly horror. So I went off to Canada to do that.
Amazing. And it's because I normally kind of get to the 45-minute mark and feel like we've kind of absolutely flown through it, and we've only really started touching base on the latest film. So maybe this is going to be one for a second podcast to dig into the script and the actors and that headspace, because I just, what I love to do is hear and what has come and shone through is your passion for the art form.
Hmm.
It's not about the ego. It's not about the Hollywood A-listers and the stuff. It's just everything that you've spoken about is just your passion for what has come before you, and then
Mm.
try and add something for the next generation so that there can be something left as a legacy of all of those years of watching films and going to the cinema with your friend at school. And I think to kind of to sum up where I've come from with this ep is a passion. It starts with a passion. It then needs some dedication and some action.
Mm.
And eventually, if you don't quit, something will come of it. And it took you 10 years to write Caliber, and it took you God knows how many years to get to that point. But now you're in a place where you are a film director. You've got a back catalogue of films that you may or may not be happy with or proud of. I know some artists, Michelangelo would probably that Sistine Chapel would have taken another 20 years if he'd been allowed to. But I just, is there anything that I haven't asked, or anything that you think is important, just to kind of round off the set before we get to the last two questions?
I suppose I haven't talked much about. I think the thing I've learned over time, like at the beginning, it was all about like style, and Argento and stuff. I think the thing it took me the longest to realize was just how important directing the actors is.
Mm.
And I've read a book that I'd encourage anybody who's wants to write or direct to read. Well, there's two actually. The first one's called Directing Actors, and the follow-up to it is called The Film Director's Intuition by this woman called Judith Weston.
Nice.
And essentially the crux of the book is like in your head, when you play your movie in your head, you will see the actors performing, and the mistake you'll make is thinking that getting them to do what's in your head is having a vision of being a strong director.
Mm.
Whereas actually what you should do is completely forget about that. And there's this really interesting quote. Both Robert Altman and David Lynch both said pretty much the same thing, which is I'll avoid anything. I'll do anything to avoid telling actors what I want. And when I heard
Nice.
that, I was just like, that is crazy
That
talk.
feels crazy,
Like,
doesn't it?
but what they're both saying is that like an actor, I mean, actors like particularly when because I've been lucky to work with some amazing like Jack Loudon, Martin McCann,
Mm.
and then Catherine Waterston, and all of the sort of younger actors on Prom Queen who were all excellent and really talented, and they all they take the script and they've all worked and come up with ideas and put imagination into it, and what Lynch and Altman was saying is because actors, well, they want you to be happy because you're the director.
Mm.
So if you anything you say will be taken as direction, and the moment you speak, the way Aldrich said, he said the moment you say anything, what could be a 360-degree circle of possibilities, goes to that, and the more you talk, the smaller it gets.
Mm.
And it's like I think that was the biggest learning thing for me, and I think there's so much to learn in terms of writing, and there's so much to learn in terms of direction, but it's the one thing, and I can be quite harsh on myself in terms of I should have done better, but that's the one thing I feel like I did make that jump through, where I realized that actually what's important is that when the actors are performing, it feels like it's happening. It's happening. It's
Yeah,
happening
nice.
right now, and
Nice.
there's an emotional events happening between the actors in that moment that's
Mm.
caught on the camera. Whereas in the past, I wouldn't have really thought about that, or I would have thought, you can get very excited because you've written the words and you just see them saying the words, and you're like, they're saying the words. This is
Mm.
amazing. What I mean? There is just a raw like excitement about the fact
Yeah,
that if you've
yeah.
written words and then somebody's fucking doing them,
Mm.
your first instinct is this is brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's great that they're doing my words, but now how can they be the best they can be?
Mm.
But that isn't like, oh, I imagine you were saying the words like this. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Which
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's kind of, I always think of directing actors like poker. Like you can learn poker, and then you go through this stage very early on with poker where you learn the rules and then you think you're a fucking genius. You know what I mean? Because you get a couple of lucky breaks and you're like, I'm fucking amazing at this. And then
Yeah.
you realize there's people who play poker who can remember hands from 13 years ago because
Right.
they're mathematical geniuses from Harvard.
Mm.
And it feels to me like directing because it gets into psychology. So it's like this endlessly complex sort of
Mm.
process.
There's a
Because
really lovely quote, well, story that I heard Gary Oldman talking about. It was on Dark Knight Rises. It's one of the Batmans, and he came out, and it was, it's single on him. He's coming out. He's, give a speech, and he did the first take, and he was like, "Yeah, I thought I did all right." And then he saw Christopher Nolan kind of walking towards him. He was like, "Fuck, I'm gonna get like this this is what you do, blah blah blah. And he was expecting this kind of really long diatribe of what he wanted and all the rest of it. And he just went and came up to me and he said, "There's more at stake," and walked off. And he was
Mm.
like, "That there's more at stake allowed him to get it." And then he was like, we did two more takes, I nailed it, and we moved on. But he could, the director, Nolan could have come up and gone, I really want you to think, an intonation here and this, and look over there, and da da da. But it was like, there's more at stake, and that's it. It's not really nice
Yeah.
and simple, and let them understand it.
I think simple is really, particularly when it's slightly nerve-wracking talking to actors sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
And because I think this is why, like directors who have been actors are that's quite useful because it's almost like it feels like a completely different art form you're trying to communicate about. But I do think that like going on and on and on can really. I've noticed a few times I've directed actors, and I've talked and talked and over talked, and without exception, their next take will be bad.
yes.
Do you know what I mean? Because they shouldn't be thinking. You don't want them to be thinking. You want them to
No.
be doing it instinctually. And so you really have to. Yeah, I mean, a few actors say like all you really want directors to say is like faster, louder. You know what I mean?
That's
And
that's basically all we're ever saying.
but I remember also like hearing like the way like Lynch apparently would make noises. So he'd go up to actors and go like, "It's more." And but it's amazing the number of actors who are like, oh yeah, I knew what you meant.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
totally didn't. Just
I think
give them something different.
you got to keep them out of their head though. The
Mm,
more you psychologize or say it's a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of that, they're like and they're
yeah,
thinking.
yeah, yeah.
And if they're thinking, you immediately see it as a bad take.
Mm,
You know?
amazing.
So that process has been just trying
And
to
it's
get.
one that will always improve. They'll always, I think the greatest directors, writers, actors, crew members are always learning from their past film, learning from their past job, and that's what it sounds like you're doing. It's like you were here, trajectories heading upwards, and all those steps, you're improving your arsenal of skill sets to become a better director on every film. It's amazing.
I think the thing that's scary is you don't. I mean, it's tough industry and it's hard to get films made, and you're almost like, I remember walking onto Caliber and I was directing a feature and I thought, suddenly I had this moment. I thought, shit. Like I thought back and I was like, I added together the days that because I'd done three shorts, so I was like, I've done
Mm.
three shorts, but I added the days together. I was like, oh my god, I've only done this for like 12 days, my whole life. Like, what other job would
Yeah.
you suddenly like make a jump up? It's like you've done 12 days like at sort of surgery college. So just got fucking open heart surgery. I was
Help. Yes, but then that boils down to then the belief, the creative clarity of knowing what you've written and trusting the people around you.
I think trusting, and letting people do their jobs.
Yeah,
Don't, you know, I've known people in the past who are like just wanted to learn all the disciplines. It's like you're not
go
gonna
nuts.
you're not gonna be a better DOP than
No,
the DOP,
no,
probably.
yeah, unlikely.
Maybe Tarantino was a good DOP, but like just let the DOP, you know,
Mm. Yeah, it's like
collaborate.
an actor learning the whole script and other people's lines. It's like just just read your lines. It's cool.
Yeah,
Just understand your character. Don't need
yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah. But
Well, look, it's been an hour, and I don't want to. I don't want to. I know you've probably got a lot to do. And
gardening.
firstly, thank you so much for kind of coming on, giving us your time, and for being so honest and open about your process and how you've got to where you get. So the last two questions, as we always do on the Film Gods, is we'll finish off with it's your acceptance speech. Who are you going to thank? How can people find you? But the second to last question that we always ask, and I normally have a specific place in mind to ask who you're going to talk to because it's your advice to your younger self. And there's kind of two moments that feel there's probably one moment that feels relevant, which would be that start of the process of Caliber.
Mm.
But I don't know whether we go back further to the chap that loves film, or maybe it's a chat to kind of they're both there because it's like that initial burning passion and love of film that created out of just sheer joy to then the person that was standing there on a film set for the first time for 6 weeks. Yeah, it's probably Caliber Dude. Let's go back to him. So you're on the phone to him. Bring ding. Hello. This is Matt. What is your advice now to that younger you stepping onto that feature film set for the first time?
When you finish shooting this, come up with another idea to pitch.
Keep a little black book of thoughts.
Because it's like I don't know. I mean, I did with Caliber. I did. It was really tough, and it was like the actors were quite tough on me because I think the actors believed in the script,
Hmm.
but they were kind of because I was a first time director. They were they were tough, and they would have strong opinions on things. But I kind of made I'd sort of instinctually made the decision that I wasn't going to like fight them and take control.
Hmm.
I was going to try and just be a little more fluid and take better ideas that they had. And so I took a kind of middle path rather than trying to like have a power battle. I
Hmm.
took a middle path through where I was just a bit more movable on stuff.
Hmm.
And I did that instinctually. So I think that was I think in terms of that experience, because on the very first day, I felt like I was having an out of body experience. I didn't think I'd never been nervous on set before, and then we did the first takes of this stuff in the car, and I literally just felt like I wanted to crawl under a rock and didn't want to say anything, and I was scared to say anything, and I was like, shit, if I'm like this for the whole shoot, I'm
This
fucked.
film ain't going to get made. Yeah.
But luckily, it kind of went away after the first day. I think
Mm.
it was just cosmically weird to be actually. It was like shit. This is actually happening.
Yeah.
It felt really dreamlike for that first day.
Mm.
But once I got over that, I feel like I did as well as I could have done. So it would be more about like just in case this goes well, start thinking about another idea.
Mm.
So you have it in those meetings.
Nice. Yeah. Never
That would
stop.
that would have been really really handy to have an idea in those meetings.
Mm. Great.
Yeah.
Lovely. Nice lesson. So, last question. It's your acceptance speech. Who would you like to thank and how do people find you?
Um, I guess my main thanks would be, I mean, my agents have been great, but I think mainly, my mom and dad for letting me take a weird career path rather than
Nice.
picking something more solid, and also just my partner and my son for allowing me to be away for periods, like either in my own head or physically in Canada, and
Mm.
sort of pursuing this, and so being so supportive
Nice.
while I've done it. You know,
It can be tough. The families of those in film
it's
have to
really
put up a lot. They put up with a lot.
it's really tricky. I mean, I've kind of almost made a like. It takes a while to get another film made anyway, but I kind of I was like, I'm not going to do another one in the next year and a half just because I feel like because I've got a son, I feel like if it's back to back away, like particularly during the sort of 10 to 14 age,
Mm.
I just I don't think that's
No.
great.
No, they need you. You
So
know.
so So yeah, if like 10 offers come in tomorrow, I'll be like, nope.
No, batting them away. We got £100 million. No, don't
No,
want it.
sorry.
Stop it. And then socials. I'll drop it
Oh
in the
yeah.
link.
I mean, mainly actually, I run a like all night horror thing in Edinburgh where I show horror movies all
Amazing.
through the night, once a year. So I'm on Facebook as Romero Cronenberg, and
Sounds like
which
the Latin lover that's just inside you
it,
trying to
it
come out.
it does, but it's two famous horror directors' names put together. It's because I think it's okay to say this now, but there was a time when Facebook was going to throw off anyone who was an organization rather than a person, so I had to come up with
Right.
a name. But it's All Night Horror Madness. That Facebook page, people can get in touch with me via the messaging on that.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you again, ladies and gents. Drop some comments, share, like, and subscribe. Thank you again to our guests for coming on. Thank you all for listening. And until we meet again, that is a wrap.
Thanks for having me.
So that was a chat with the king or queen in the game. I give it a shout at the end so you all know the name. It's the Film Gods Podcast. The what? The Film God Podcast.